discuss solarpunk ideology, things we can do in our communities to make them better, and ways to build the world that we want to live in. Well, we made it to the end of June, my favorite month because of Pride, Juneteenth, and Black Music Month. And it's really hot out. I'll be honest, I kind of miss my summers in the mountains where every day is like 70 degrees during the summer. I'm sort of baking right now while I record this for you guys because my air conditioner is really loud, so you're welcome. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk about hope and some things that have been making me hopeful over the past week. So hopefully it'll give you a boost going into next week. So first I'd like to talk about Zohran Mamdani's amazing win in New York. I don't know what the final numbers were after they counted all the votes, but I'd heard that he was in a massive lead over Andrew Cuomo when they were doing exit polling. So that's awesome. I've never been to New York, but I definitely celebrate that win for New Yorkers. The reason we're going to talk about him now is because his platform is amazing. It's very, very solarpunk. We'll go through some of the policy proposals that I think most align with solarpunk ideology. But before we do that, I just want to play a quick clip from his victory speech.
Tonight, we made history. In the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done. My friends, we have done it. I will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York City. An hour ago, I spoke with Andrew Cuomo about the need to bring this city together as he called me to concede the race. And I want to thank Brad Lander, who did exactly that. Together we have shown the power of the politics of the future. One of partnership and of sincerity.
Zohran, let's hear it.
Thank you, brother. Today, 8 months after launching this campaign, with the vision of a city that every New Yorker could afford, we have won.
So that's pretty amazing. Congratulations, New York. That makes me pretty hopeful. I think Zohran identifies as a democratic socialist, and let's see. Let's define that really quickly. I'm on the Wikipedia page for democratic socialism. And this is the piece I wanted to share. It says democratic socialists argue that capitalism is inherently incompatible with the values of freedom, equality, and solidarity, and that these ideals can only be achieved through the realization of a socialist society. Although most democratic socialists seek a gradual transition to socialism, democratic socialism can support revolutionary or reformist politics to establish socialism. So socialism aligns pretty well with solarpunk ideology. In fact, I believe a lot of the solarpunk, policy ideas come from socialist policy ideas. So let's look at these really quick. The one that stood out the most to me that I thought was pretty impressive, and I guess the one that a lot of capitalists were sort of losing their minds over were the city-owned grocery stores. I think that's pretty amazing. Now, this is from his platform on his website, and it says, as mayor, Zohran will create a network of city-owned grocery stores focused on keeping prices low, not making a profit. Without having to pay rent or property taxes, they will reduce overhead and pass on savings to shoppers. They will buy and sell at wholesale prices, centralize warehousing and distribution, and partner with local neighborhoods on products and sourcing. That's fantastic. Now, a lot of folks are going to try to convince you that this is a pipe dream. It's not possible. But that's not true. There have already been city-owned grocery stores in the U.S. In Florida, there was the Baldwin Market. It was purchased by the city in 2019, and it operated until 2024. In Illinois, there are multiple city-run markets in Chicago, and in Kansas, St. Paul's Supermarket runs in St. Paul, and it's municipality-owned. So we've seen examples of how this can work. Don't listen to the folks that tell you it's not possible. Zohran has also proposed fare-free buses. They said that these will eliminate the fare on every city bus and make them faster by rapidly building priority lanes, expanding bus queue jump signals, and dedicated loading zones to help keep double parkers out of the way. Now, this is really great because according to MTA.info, MTA riders prevent about 20 million metric tons of greenhouse gases annually by taking transit instead of driving, and that's the equivalent to the carbon absorption of a forest the size of Indiana. In 2006, NYC Transit saved 1.8 million gallons of oil and 11.8 million metric tons of CO2 thanks to mass transit uses. Fare-free buses will absolutely encourage more people to use public transit and even lessen the traffic within the city. So, awesome. Now, Zohran and his team also have a plan to build more affordable housing in the city, promising 200,000 new units over the next 10 years, and they're implementing something called the Department of Community Safety. Now, I tried to dig a little bit into this. They have a folder on Google Drive with all of their policy proposals and more information about how they plan to implement the policies. Now, this sounds a lot to me like the defund the police movement, where advocates were arguing that you could take some funds away from the police department, put them back into the community. And this Department of Community Safety seems like they were smart enough to sort of reword it so they could accomplish the same thing, but it doesn't sound as threatening as defunding a police department. To some people, I'm fully in support of defunding the police. I don't care how scary that sounds, but this sounds like they found a way to make it sound more appealing because they're putting these resources into their Department of Community Safety. So here's what they're saying their Department of Community Safety will do. Prioritize prevention first community-based solutions which have been consistently shown to better improve safety. Its focuses include investing in citywide mental health, education, and services, improving subway and street safety, reducing homelessness, expanding gun violence prevention, addressing hate violence, supporting victims, and leading interagency innovations and coordination. Now, here's where I will say that maybe we should keep an eye on this to see how it's implemented, but it does sound really good on paper. So kudos. That sounds great. Next, the Green Schools for a Healthier New York City will renovate 500 public schools with renewable energy infrastructure and HVAC upgrades, transform 500 asphalt schoolyards into vibrant green spaces, and create some union jobs. That's pretty awesome. And lastly, the thing that stood out to me was they're promising some new LGBTQ protections. They're going to expand and protect gender-affirming care citywide. That's great. We need that. And it says that they're going to be making NYC a sanctuary city and creating the Office of LGBTQ Affairs. That's great. That's great. No notes. Good job. Protect the people. And this is great. I think one of the most viable ways to get to the solarpunk future that we envision is by finding local leaders like Zohran who have similar goals and building with them. We can build small pockets of these communities that are welcoming to those who want to join them. Solarpunk isn't about building the perfect utopia. It's about prioritizing sustainability. We can only do that with community power. So we have to have hope. right? We have to have hope and imagination so we can solve the problems and help people. That's the whole purpose of being a part of a community. It's just way more equitable and efficient to try to solve problems together. So congratulations, Zohran in New York, and may the rest of the country follow suit. I will be keeping my eye on that general election because I also heard that Eric Adams is going to run again, and just no, please. So here's another minor win for the week. Congressman Mike Lee pulls federal land sales from mega bill. According to Politico, Senate Energy and Natural Resources Chair Mike Lee from Utah withdrew his controversial provision to sell public lands for development Saturday night under fierce opposition from fellow Republicans from western states. Now, I call this a minor win because the reasoning for pulling it is kind of garbage. He claimed that he couldn't ensure that the land would be sold to private American families, which, okay, Mike, this leads me to believe that this particular fight to protect public lands isn't over. It's an old Republican strategy to wait until people are distracted with something else and then try to sneak stuff like this into larger bills. So we should keep an eye on that. William Perry Pendley, I looked this guy up. He's a longtime advocate for privatizing federal lands and has called their existence unconstitutional. He led the Bureau of Land Management from July 2019 to September 2020 under the first Trump administration. He also wrote the Department of the Interior section of Project 2025. And here are some of the key themes from his section. Maximizing resource extraction. Expanding oil, gas, coal, and mineral development on federal lands. Eliminating what they call radical environmental regulations. Expediting leasing and reduce environmental review timelines. Reduce federal land ownership power, reframing federal land management as a violation of state sovereignty, dismantling conservation policies, weakening Endangered Species Act and protections tied to land use, slashing the budgets and staff for land management agencies like BLM, NPS, and U.S. Forest Service, favoring ranching, logging, and energy interests, expanding grazing rights and logging permits, and prioritizing industry and local control over conservation or indigenous stewardship. So I feel pretty confident in saying that this fight is nowhere near over as long as the current administration is still in power. But I'll take it as a minor source of hope and a win for now. As we come to the end of Pride Month, I would like to make a recommendation. If you have access to Netflix, they did a documentary called Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson a couple years ago. I'll play the trailer here in just a moment, but I also want to point out that the Stonewall Inn National Park site has been targeted by the Trump administration. If you go to the Park Service webpage at nps.gov/STON, they've made every effort to erase transgender people from the conversation. They've also removed the video series about the Stonewall riots, the recommended book list, and they seem to want to whitewash the monument into some generic message about the, quote, LGBT rights movement that only highlights gay white men. This is really egregious, and it's important for us to keep the history of gay and trans liberation alive so we can continue to make progress in the face of authoritarianism. So I will share the reading list in the notes, and I highly recommend the Netflix documentary on Marsha P. Johnson, without whom there would be no Pride Month.
I want to say it was the 4th of July. We were going to meet at midnight, but she never showed up.
She was in danger.
I was there when they pulled her out. Marsha was so full of life.
Marsha P. Johnson was the Rosa Parks of the LGBT movement.
Darling, I want my gay rights now!
Her case has been cold for 25 years. I'm calling from the Anti-Violence Project here in New York City. I want to try to give Marsha justice.
Marsha! Marsha! Street people and the drag queens were the vanguard of the movement. Stonewall, Marsh and I fought the cops off.
We were in the streets turning over cars.
The movement started the next day.
Marsha was famous all around the world. But even famous people, cases go cold. This is her case.
It's hard for me to believe that she would commit suicide.
A lot of people think it was a murder.
Marsha had a fear about the mafia.
Something's wrong. We keep on running into a brick wall.
You a private investigator?
No.
Don't play detective yourself, all right? Leave this to the people that should handle it.
been beaten. I have been thrown in jail. I have lost my job for gay liberation. Revolution now!
I don't bite my tongue for nobody, which can get you murdered, you know.
The police just brush it off.
I'll get to the bottom of it. There's a massive number of trans women who have been murdered. And they're yelling out from their graves for justice.
I can't think of a better way to end Pride Month than to honor the story of one of our greatest leaders. So if you haven't already, go check out that documentary. Thanks for listening to episode 4 of Solarpunking. You can catch new episodes every Sunday this summer, where I will talk about solarpunk ideology, things we can do in our communities to make them better, and ways to build the world that we want to live in. If you've enjoyed listening so far, consider sharing this podcast with your friends and family members that you think would also like to join the movement. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed and left comments. I really appreciate it. Until next week, stay hydrated and motivated. Peace.